Busted Open. On for another hour. Get your calls in with the Hall of Famer Jim Ross here in studio with us. 844 SXM Rush, 844-796-7874 on the brand new Rush 93. On demand, of course, if you missed hour number one, how dare you? But you can go to On Demand and listen either in its entirety or to bits and pieces. It's the best part of the On Demand service. And, of course, the new and improved app. BustedOpenNation.com. Get all the social media. That is us. And, of course, for JR, at JRSBBQ is the Twitter handle. JRSBARBQ.com, the website. Tomorrow night, Gramercy Theatre, 6 p.m. VIP meet and greet, 8 p.m. doors for general admission. Show starts at 9 p.m. at 127 East 23rd Street, the legendary Gramercy Theatre, and I can't wait to be a part of that show. JR is giving away 2 tickets to Summerslam, as if JR is not enough to go and listen to his amazing tales from life in pro wrestling. But you do have a crack at getting SummerSlam tickets. It's a pretty cool drawing, as JR giving even more away to his great fan base. Pretty amazing stuff.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun night. I can't wait. And the tickets are good tickets too to SummerSlam. I was very fortunate to be able to score those. So and hopefully we'll have a good crowd. People can buy tickets tomorrow, Saturday, to show up. And there's plenty of room. The GAs, the general admission tickets, are $25. And as you mentioned earlier, we sold our entire allotment of VIP tickets. And what people say, what does a VIP ticket mean? It's you get in early. You get a meet and greet, photo op, and I personalize your swag.
Nice.
And if you don't have anything, you don't bring anything to sign. A lot of people bring encyclopedias, those WWE encyclopedias, or programs, or whatever, or just DVD covers. I always bring a few pictures, and if somebody doesn't have something, I don't. It's not the gimmick table where you're paying, $20 or. I don't have
an 8x10 glossy.
I don't have a gimmick table. I'll give them a photo and sign it, and that's the way that is. And we got Gramercy coming up tomorrow night. I've got Ringside with Jim Ross in Knoxville, Tennessee on Thursday night, September the 10th. That's the Thursday before the Oklahoma-Tennessee game in Knoxville.
Nice.
And that's going to be a lot of fun. That's at the International, and tickets are on sale there at ticketweb.com in Knoxville, Thursday night, September the 10th.
Did you just say that the Sooners are playing the Vols?
Yeah, on Saturday.
And you're playing Knoxville.
Yeah, I'm playing that way. I
love it.
I'm going in there on Tuesday. And
JR's the heel at this show. I love it.
And we're going to, Knoxville used to be the hub of a big, very successful wrestling territory. So we'll have a lot of good old school fans there. And I'm not, the the OU and doesn't have great love for orange, especially burnt orange. But, the volunteer orange is cool. They came to our place last year. They were class acts. We're going to their place this year, and I'm sure that our fans will conduct themselves professionally and nicely. And then I got a show on September the 20th. That's the night of the day of Night of Champions in Houston. I am playing at Warehouse Live, which is 0.5 of a mile from the Toyota Center. And my show's a 4 o'clock show, be over a little before 6, and the show starts at 7. It's a 10-minute walk max from my venue down to the Toyota Center to watch WWE in action. So it's a good kind of a combo deal. And I'm doing very few shows during football season because I would, quite frankly, rather go watch OU play football than to go make money.
That's
dedication.
Commitment right there. If you had one item that you could get JR to sign, what would it be? One item.
A check.
No, well,
clever.
All right, second.
Okay.
Something
meaningful.
Something that's meaningful to me, and I've mentioned this to JR
and by the
before.
way, you don't have to have it. You could go out and buy it.
No, but I have this.
Okay, and
I have this.
And mine would be something I don't have.
I have my all-time favorite match. I've mentioned this on the air many times. My all-time favorite match is the Terry Funk Ric Flair I Quit match. And a big reason why it's my favorite match is because it was JR and Gordon Solie doing the call. Mm-hmm. I have a picture of JR and Gordon Solie that's probably what I would have JR sign.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
That was a fun night. And, there's a lot of Hall of Fame type talent. I mean, Gary Hart was the manager.
Gary Hart was the manager, yep.
Tommy Young was the referee.
Tommy Young was the referee.
One of the best ever. Nate was a baby face, which he didn't like, but he was a good one. And, of course, Terry. I didn't want to give up, but that son of a bitch was potatoing me. And my brother Dory and I talked about it before the match, and he said, just do business and get paid. So, and then he had, who else do you have in that? Let's see, Flair, Funk, Gary Hart, Tommy Young, and then Gordon and me.
Yeah, it was amazing. And Gary Hart's a manager that really gets overlooked when they talk about the greatest managers of all time.
He's there.
Gary Hart's definitely on the top.
He's there. He was a guy that loved to be disliked. And I was asked a question last night on Scott Stanford's sports show on WPIX Channel 11. Who's the best talker? Who's the best mouthpiece I've heard? And I said, well, really, Heyman is as good as I've heard. I've heard some really good. I mean, Heyman was good, and it depends on what you're cast to do. And Paul can be very funny, and Paul can be very like you're scratching a blackboard. He can be very grating. He has great range. And when I first got into do TV, his first major TV gig in the late 80s, he was just learning his skills, and he was like a prodigy. So he was really, really good early. But he's gone through all these late 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010. Gets on the outside of the WWE envelope, and he is still chugging away, middle-aged and crazy, so to speak. But he's as good as there has been because he's transcended decades and generations, and he keeps tweaking himself. So right now he's so far ahead of whoever's second. It's not even I don't know who they are as far as talking. So he was really good. So I have but that was a great night. Gordon was very reluctant to do all that because of his health, and he had a little drinking issue, but one of my stories I tell in my show is doing two-hour tapings for WCW Saturday night, and I convinced him that he should do color with me, like the old days, him being back on Saturday night. He didn't want to do the lead guy because it's too much prep, and he was older, and so I sent a runner, a production assistant, out to buy me a big thermos, one of those like an igloo, like you take on a picnic with your bunch of family. I said, I want you to fill it full of ice. I want you to put a fifth of vodka in it, and I want you to put whatever amount, then fill the rest with orange juice. And if it doesn't fill it up, put more vodka in it, and stir it up, and bring it and set it right here by my table. So I would during a commercial break or between matches, I'd lean over and I'd get a little cup full, and I'd say, "Here, Gordon, take some drink this. This will make you feel better," because he was having a hell of a time, 3 hours in, not a cocktail. And so he discovered what I did, that he had screwdrivers. So he drank screwdrivers for 2 hours and change.
Amazing.
While he was on the air, and it raised his sugar level up and made him feel good because he finally got a cocktail, and he had an issue, obviously, and was failing health. So I made him comfortable, and he was my analyst. And he said, I don't really know. I said, just listen. I'll ask you the questions. And I said, you make up something. Hell, just make it up. What's the difference in a front chancery and a front face lock? Well, I know that. He said, well, I know you know that. So you tell the audience what you know. So he was great. It was great. Because he was my role model as far as wrestling was concerned. And then I remember one day I got my first really good ass chewing from Bill Watts, because I did a little screen test for that when I was working in the wrestling office in Tulsa, and I tried to sound like Gordon. I can still do Gordon. Gordon needs to be back. I've got Terry Funk and Stu Hart and Jim Cornette. Always hide Jim Nance, the CBS guy. He's always smoking weed on my show. Amen Corner. And Amen Corner. Tiger's got a 9 iron. I think it's a 9 iron. So I do those, and I do stew. You know, a stew comes in. I have stews usually in the Burger King window. It's this stew. You want Canadian bacon with that crisp sandwich? Then Terry would say, if I wanted Canadian bacon, you stupid Canadian son of a bitch, I would ask for Canadian bacon. This is America. I want Texas bacon. That kind of deal.
I love it.
So I've been bringing all these characters into my podcast, and so I do Jim Barnett. The extra long cheeseburger, jalapeno cheeseburger. I love the jalapeno cheeseburger because it has my two favorite words in it.
Oh, boy.
Extra long.
Oh, boy.
Somebody said, who is Jim Barnett? I said, well, he's a wrestling promoter. Think Truman Capote.
Oh, boy.
Think Philip Seymour Hoffman as Truman Capote. That was Mr. Barnett. He was an openly gay man. Not a thing in the world wrong with that. But he was one of the bravest guys I know because in the macho world of Caucasian alpha males, he navigated those shark-infested waters and became one of the big power brokers in pro wrestling.
Wow.
And he didn't try to hide his sexuality. But he was so smart and such a deal maker that the homophobic guys, the Caucasian promoters, and there's a reason I say Caucasian promoters, they accepted him because he was a deal maker. He made the money. So it's like Bill Watts getting chewed out by some promoters on the speakerphone. He and I were in a booking meeting. Bill took a call from a couple of promoters that had conference called in and wanted to know why he was trying to kill the business, making Ernie Ladd his booker and Junkyard Dog his top hero. And obviously, for those that may not know, Ernie and JYD were men of color. And so these old white Caucasian promoters are trying to figure out, what are you trying to do? You kill the business? How are we going to react to them meaning the African Americans? And Bill said, well, you guys have got something wrong. You're thinking that my favorite color is white. My favorite color is green.
Mm-hmm.
And Ernie's a great booker, and Junkyard Dog is selling tickets. That's all I care about. So little stories like that.
I love it.
That's kind of along the lines of what we do on my show. When you start in '74 driving McGurk around, a blind promoter, and you end up as a EVP at WWE on a publicly traded company, and all those journeys and twists and turns on the road, from ring crew to referee to ring announcer to play-by-play guy. You know, I was VP of broadcasting at Turner. I was a VP, then a senior VP, then an EVP at WWE. And I think we put together a nice talent roster.
Absolutely.
I hope we get a McGurk story tomorrow night.
You know, so we're good. Oh, you will. You will.
So
it's
amazing.
It's been a fun run, and my particular job description just puts me into some rarefied air because nobody had my journey. Everybody, they wrestled, they managed, you know.
Yeah.
They didn't start. They came after the territory era type thing. So I was in the territory. I know about the territories because I worked in one. I worked in a couple. So it's a fun thing for me, and to give back to the fans these great stories and take their questions, because that's what I missed more than anything about my job was that adrenaline you got from that live audience. There's nothing in the world can replicate it.
Do you adjust to the crowd at all? Like if you're doing your show and you see some Dave LaGreca's got a little gray in the hair, knowing that he's a certain age, that probably want to hear some more of the territory stories, or if it's a younger crowd, do you go more into the 90s and 2000s? Do you adjust to the crowd at all?
I adjust to the crowd, Dave, when the venue allows children, because I may sanitize my show a little bit, just so I don't, sometimes I come through, I have a VIP, a dad's bringing his kids 12, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell the kid, hey, look, OJR is probably going to say some words tonight that I don't recommend you ever saying, and I'll apologize now. And I'll try to limit but some stories just aren't the stories that they are. unless you use the full package.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I don't go crazy on it. Don't get me wrong, but there's some. It's not a PG show. It can be, and I have done PG shows. My best shows are R-rated. So
I like that.
Before we get to the phones, 844-SXM Rush, can you do the Solie for us?
well, the front face lock could be a cravat. William Regal, the noted senior citizen from the United Kingdom, would say the cravat may be one of the most underrated moves in wrestling. I was calling an Australian rules tag team match in Venezuela, which I didn't understand why we were in Venezuela having an Australian rules tag match, but then Stardust himself, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, explained to me. And between vodka and gin, I got it. Gordon Solie here, signing off, saying, so long from the Sunshine State.
Love it. Love it.
Awesome.
Love it.
Amazing.
Gotta have the Australian rules. Because he would say, he goes, and this is Australian rules.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Australian rules tag
And, you know,
match.
as a kid watching, I didn't know what it meant, but it must have been important.
Absolutely.
It was Australian rules.
I was watching it. Do you hold on to the tag rope a certain way? Like I was like, what the hell is an Australian rules tag match?
Well,
Still don't know.
There's something to be said about that. I think there is. You should always hold on to the tag rope.
Yes.
And if your both feet aren't on the aprons with the old school rules, then in any tag where you're like, you got your foot up on the rope, bottom rope, and you're reaching over to make the tag, that's an illegal tag. But the business in general has gotten so damn lazy on the most nuanced little things in the business that they're taking things away. Like one example, if people won't understand this, you should, in a wrestling match, _wrestling, strikes with the clinch fist should never be legal. And so if you're going to use them, and you use them strategically. When the referee doesn't see you, or the referee's back is turned, or you're just in a rage. But you know that the clinch fist, you get warned, and you usually get a couple, 3 warnings, and you could be disqualified. Because back in where the business was construed, it's no different than the NFL. They keep scoring the NFL. Last I saw, they even have point spreads. Amazing damn new innovation, and they have stations that have fantasy football shows, and
crazy
and podcasts with fantasy football shows. So these spreads and all that are important, because it's all about winning and losing at the end of the day in the NFL. And in wrestling anymore, it seems like you see a guy lose, he's not despondent. It's just how he's booked.
Yep.
And you don't see that, you don't feel that, oh, damn it. You know, because the rules all were the winners got more money than the losers, like the XFL. And now you don't see guys following through with that. They're lazy on their fundamentals. And that's not a WWE indictment. If you're like me and you watch a lot of wrestling on Wednesdays, you see it everywhere.
Yep.
They just taking shortcuts, doing a lot of spots, a lot of flying, flip-flopped and flying, very little selling. And they hurt themselves, but they don't realize it. Some of them are afraid to slow down because they don't really know how to work that good yet. And they're smoke and mirroring it, flying well into style. That's my 2
No,
cents.
it's true.
Amazing stuff.
Absolutely true.
Let's open up the phones for the first time today. Appreciate everybody patiently waiting. Let's start down in Atlanta. We'll talk to Marcus. What's up, Marcus?
Guys, how are y'all today? Shot for 5. LaGreca, I hope you had a great vacation.
Thank you, my friend.
Not a problem. JR, this is a huge honor for me to talk to you, just being on the phone.
Thank you.
I enjoy your impressions. You know, I'm at a loss for words. I told my childhood self that I'd be on the phone with Jim Ross at my age. I wouldn't. I've enjoyed every story you told. You know, I wish I could go to New York this weekend and just watch.
I do too. We'll be playing in Atlanta someday. I promise you, because I that's on my agent's to-do list. Boston, Atlanta are 2 of the cities that we want to play among many. But I'll play Atlanta. I enjoyed living there. I was there from about 87 to 93, and I never lived anywhere, excluding Norman, where I live now in Oklahoma, more than I enjoyed living in Atlanta.
Wow.
It was great. So you got a great city, and I'll be down there. And when I come, hopefully you'll come to my show.
Of course I'll come, because right now I'm learning more about the business right now and more about, learning about creative and everything than I've learned maybe just me watching, because I love, listening and learning and everything. I was actually going to ask you two questions, and I'll just make it as quick as I possibly can. SummerSlam, if they do a DQ finish with Rollins or Cena, could you see Triple H getting somehow involved and maybe costing Rollins the match and maybe turning like a face turn for Rollins? Number two, I actually have a barbecue question for you. Do you enjoy using a dry rub or wet rub more for if you're smoking a Boston butt or a brisket?
Dry rub, and I'm not saying that just because I sell one. At www.shop.com, you can buy all of our products online. They'll deliver it to your front door. It's very easy and very safe online transactions. It's called JR's All-Purpose Seasoning. It's a great dry rub, and I my friend that allows me to package it won the World Barbecue Cook-Off Contest back before they became so cool on television, before the Food Network. He's like in the 70s. It's the best rub I've ever tasted, and I would certainly encourage you to try a bottle, and it'll last you for probably a year or longer, but it's really good. So I like the dry rub. I'm not a big wet guy because I think it adversely affects the taste of the meat. The question on Triple H, there's something brewing with Triple H and Rollins, quite obviously.
Oh, yeah.
So wherein the trigger's pulled, I don't know. I don't think Rollins needs to be a babyface right now, but again, there's where the dominoes start falling. None of us know where they're going to play. If there's 52 cards in a deck, where are all these cards going to end up being and what hand? So it's hard to say. Just from what I've seen thus far, Rollins is starting to come into his own as a really great heel. And a booker's dream is to have a heel champion that can, on any given night, to another star on your roster could lose. He's not impregnable, not unbeatable. Much like Hogan was positioned when he was the champion, he was almost unbeatable. But he was such a big star, people came to see him, and he vanquished all the villains. The thing about a Flair, that's the average size guy, or Rollins, on any given night they could lose. And if you were looking at house show business, live event business, that was a good way of selling tickets because the local hero may beat the champion because he is physically beatable.
And I think what you said before in hour one rings true in that SummerSlam, I expect, and you confirming it makes me think even more so, that there's going to be a lot of seeds planted for WrestleMania here. We're talking about maybe Triple H, Rollins. We've discussed before if there's a way that they could set up a shield, just everybody singles, somehow position each guy that they got a beef. If Rollins was still the champion and the three of them were in a triple threat for WrestleMania, to me, that's a marquee matchup right there.
What would happen, this is really crazy, and I may be drug tested when this is over. What if they did a double turn with Ambrose and Reigns against Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper, a double turn? So all of a sudden now the two Shield guys are back being heels, and Rollins is a heel. Now you've got the Horsemen, the new generation faction, and they're all heels, and they really, instead of being cool, which they're going to be cool because they all look good, but they wrestle. They have a little bit of chicken doo-doo in them. When it gets too hot in the kitchen, they bolt. They don't mind retreating. They don't mind bitching and moaning. That's an interesting scenario because your best, most marketable workers in the territory days generally were the heels. You can take an average babyface that could make a great comeback. If a babyface could sell and make a great comeback and he was working with a tremendous heel, you had the perfect combination.
And that's really what you have in all three of those guys. You know, I don't know if I would have said that about Reigns prior to his most recent, say, 6-8 months. He has impressed the hell out of me. He's gotten his wind under. I thought cardio was maybe his biggest bugaboo. And then, you know, just kind of getting more reps in there is probably the thing.
Yeah.
But he's been very impressive. And obviously, Ambrose and Rollins are just tremendous pro wrestlers.
Well, here's the difference there is, here's what you got there, Doug. You got Ambrose and Rollins had many years' experience before they got to Broadway. Reigns came off the farm. Reigns was playing CFL football or something, you know, at a 330-pound nose tackle after Georgia Tech. So even though he was a second-generation guy and he was a member of the Wild Samoan lineage, that doesn't mean he's going to be a great wrestler. You know, my dad was a great carpenter. I can't even drive a nail. So what the hell does that mean? So the deal is that the Rollins and Ambrose started way ahead of Reigns. There's no doubt that Reigns is going to have a beautiful career in WWE. I just believe that he would have been, and I talked to Steve Austin on my podcast about this not that long ago, and on his, that we both agree that Reigns would have been much better off as a heel and have a nice run as a heel, learn to work in that role, which makes you a better babyface, and then turn. Because it was obvious that in the beginning, people didn't want to cheer Roman Reigns, much like they didn't want to cheer. I remember right here in this town, in the Garden, I saw my first Rocky Die sign, and we couldn't understand it because we'd worked. You know, he just been doing vignettes. He finally makes his debut in that goofy costume, which maybe that got the heat. He had a very unusual haircut, and he'll laugh about it now, and that island boy type get up. I don't think he was barefooted. I hoped he wasn't. I don't want to remember that because that would really be stereotypical. But I saw the first Rocky Die sign. I couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe it. And it's just there's where we started seeing that the fans becoming a little bit more defiant, lacking that edginess. And then The Rock's, okay, by God, you want edgy? Give me the mic.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes back to the U, you know, with Michael Irvin and all those Warren Sapp and all those big mouth great players that had something to say all the time. He just became that again. He became what he was in college. The U talks trash. It's not a knock. It's just that's their MO. They intimidated people. So he became that. And so I just think this Sunday's going to be very, very unpredictable. And I think it's going to be one of the more unpredictable shows that we've seen. And I think some people that we might expect to be there will be there in enhanced cameo roles that affect future bookings.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Miami, Florida State, a little bit more classy. Florida State, just a little bit.
I like where you're leading with that. Might be hearing from former Florida State alumni soon. Let's grab Peter in Florida. I want to squeeze another call in before we pause here. What's up, Peter?
Hey, how you doing? I just wanted to say I'm glad I found you guys on XM. I mean, I'm probably one of the biggest wrestling fans in the world. And Mr. Ross, I just wanted to say it's an honor to speak with you.
Thank you, Peter.
I followed you back from Georgia Championship Wrestling to WCW, NWA, and all that. So it's an honor. My question is, how do you see the business today? Because I see it a lot of, like the wrestling internet sites and all that. They talk about Vince McMahon having some kind of vision of the big muscle guys and Triple H with the CEO of the company having a different vision than Vince McMahon, and probably there's maybe a little bit of a competition there. I don't know if that has any legitimacy, but I wanted to know, what is your opinion of the business today, and where do you see it going? And thank you for your time.
You bet. The business today is finally reeling from the lack of territories, and you don't have a guy. When I hired Stone Cold Steve Austin to come to WWE, I think Steve had 7 years in, and he'd been in Tennessee territory and the Dallas territory, and when we brought him to Atlanta, and so he had 7 years in different territories and different teachings under his belt. Mick Foley maybe even a little longer territories and years. So we were getting guys that were more polished and more refined and knew they had more experience, and it showed. Now you've got guys, Triple H, Paul Levesque has done a phenomenal job of reaching out, and one of his top guys is William Regal, scouting talent, and that's why a guy like Cesaro's there, and Kevin Owens, used to be Kevin Steen, finally got a gig, and Balor's no rookie; he's been around for several years. The Japanese kid that got hurt, Tommy, he's no rookie. So they're changing their philosophy from going just to raw rookies, but you still got to have really athletic raw rookies, or you become solely dependent on the independent circuit. The point of that is you don't want to become solely dependent on any one entity. And if that was the case, and we're going to go the indie route, then Brock Lesnar would never have been in the business. When we were recruiting Brock Lesnar, he was interested in the money and the bright lights, but primarily the money. And he got the biggest deal that we ever give. He broke Rock's record of his salary for his rookie year, but I thought he was very well worth it. And thus far, he's proven that he's a pretty special talent. So I think the business is going through a kind of a transitional period. Now the old territory guys are too old; they're gone to come in and help you. You got to train your own guys, or you got to be very, very cautious and be observant to find good independent guys. I tell people this: if I were you, young wrestlers, I'd do all I could to get into Ring of Honor, and then because from Ring of Honor, you got a pipeline to WWE. It's proven. Look at the punks of the world. CM Punk, Samoa Joe.
Your champion, Seth Rollins,
champion.
Cesaro,
So
Kevin Owens.
Yeah, and Bryan Danielson.
That's a good one.
So all those guys are Ring of Honor alumni, and I don't think Ring of Honor does enough on their show to showcase that. If I would be very tempted to have a little retro of on every show, 2 or 3 minutes, of some of the WWE's biggest stars today when they were with the original team. Wouldn't bother me a bit. I think it's just real, and people like real. So I think the business is going through kind of a transitional period because of the lack of territories, and it's just so hard to train kids to get them ready. And then the audience now have so much more information. They're highly critical. You literally get one shot to make a first impression. And if you don't make a good first impression, sometimes it kills you.